What if I told you that two tiny words could end up forming the biggest ideas in the world? These words are what if. They might seem simple, but in fact, they're powerful. What if is the question behind every intention, every idea, every story, and every dream. Today, I want to show you how these words can boost creativity and open a world of possibilities, especially for young people like us, still figuring out who we are and what we might become. I'm Julia, I'm 15 years old, and I'm going to show you how a tiny wondering can create a great deal of possibilities. When we're young, we're often told to follow rules, to fit into expectations, and to choose a job or professional career that is realistic. But history shows us that people who eventually changed the world didn't just follow what was already out there. They questioned it. They asked themselves what else could be done. I first understood the power of what if when I learned about people who changed the world just by asking this. For example, Isaac Newton didn't discover gravity just because an apple fell from a tree. Many people had seen apples fall before. What made him different was that he asked, what if there's an invisible force that pulls everything down? That simple question changed science forever. The same thing happened to J.K. Rowling. She was on a train when she asked herself, what if there's a boy who's a wizard and one day discovers a magical world? That what if became in Harry Potter, a story that millions of people love today. And even in music, artists use this question. Billie Eilish once wondered, what if I make music that doesn't sound like anyone else? That wondering helped her create a unique style that made her one of the youngest artists to win several major awards. Learning about these people made me realize something important. Every big change in technology, science, arts, or society, it started with someone curious and brave enough to ask a new question. And the best part, you don't need to be a genius or a grown-up to ask powerful questions. You just need to be willing to wonder, like they once did. Instead of only seeing what if as a big world-changing question, I started to notice how it shows up in small moments too, the kinds of moments we all experience. Asking what if can help us try a new hobby, talk to someone new, or attempt something that feels a little scary. It's not just about inventing a new law in physics or writing a best-selling book. It's about imagining something different for ourselves, even if it's just a small step forward. For example, what if you joined a club you've never considered before? What if you raised your hand, even though you weren't completely sure of the answer? What if you shared the idea you've been keeping to yourself because you thought it wasn't good enough? Sometimes those small moments of courage on our daily lives can alter our paths. In school, we are taught to find the right answer, but sometimes the right one hasn't been invented yet. When we ask what if, we imagine new futures, solve problems in unexpected ways, and test the limits we didn't know existed. And this way of thinking doesn't only affect our classrooms, it also affects the world we're trying to solve. Most of the day's biggest global challenges, from climate change to epidemics to even technological advancements, require people that will think beyond existing solutions. They need creative thinkers that will ask questions that don't have clear answers yet. Instead of thinking, I can't, try and ask, what if I could? Instead of saying, that's impossible, ask, what if it isn't? That mindset can turn doubt into discovery and failure into future plans. Of course, asking what if isn't always comfortable, because sometimes it leads us into failure. But after all, it's just part of the process. Many successful people failed multiple times before they found something that worked. The difference is that they didn't stop asking. Also, many people feel what if moments that not only act as sparks of creativity, but also as reminders of decisions they've made or opportunities they didn't seize. So we've all asked, what if I had worked harder? Or what if I had accepted the challenge? As we look back on our lives. And sometimes the questions can be a little disheartening. But instead of letting ourselves to be trapped in the past by regret, we can take those what if moments to learn and grow. By asking ourselves what we could have done differently and then taking action, we approach the best meaning of what if, not as a source of frustration about what we can change, but as a fuel for what we can build in the future. In fact, asking what if can be a powerful tool for solving real-life problems. According to the expert Warren Berger in his book A More Beautiful Question, meaningful change often begins with a series of questions. First, asking why, to understand the problem. Then, what if, to think about possible solutions. And finally, how, to make those ideas real. This shows that what if it's not just about dreaming. It also offers a safe environment to develop and experiment new ideas before taking action, without any pressures regarding if it's correct or not, or how society will see it. The brain is more able to generate more innovative ideas when it's free from judgment. And in that moment, it is often where the best ideas emerge. We ask ourselves what if questions all the time. Some seems to be bigger, some smaller, and some that feel completely pointless. What if I hadn't followed that recommendation? What if I hadn't taken that other route? At first, these questions can seem like distractions, but it can actually show us what is important to us. By paying attention to the thoughts that keep coming up again and again, we start to identify patterns, to discover what we really care about, what scares us, and what we hope for. Instead of thinking about those what-if questions as a waste of time, we can treat them as a guide to find better ways to discover ourselves and what we value. And the major upside about what if is that you can start now. You don't have to wait to be older, smarter, or more ready to make a difference. What if your voice matters more than you think? What if your strange idea isn't weird? It just needs some time. What if a tiny idea, project, or question leads to something stunning? From history, we know that people who eventually shape the future are the ones who have first imagined how it will be. Before Steve Jobs changed the way we communicate, he imagined a technology that felt simple and human. Even Walt Disney began with something simple, imagining stories and characters that would make people laugh. The point is that this ability isn't limited to scientists, artists, or famous innovators. It belongs to all of us. You don't need to have all the answers. You just have to start with a question. So next time someone says that something's not possible, just ask, what if it isn't? Because those two words are the shape of possibility itself. And you'll never know what you'll discover until you ask. Thank you.